Well, the countdown is over in Zimbabwe because voting has already started in Zimbabwe's landmark election, and SABC reporters across the country there in Zimbabwe keeping us up to speed with the developments. And we're going to cross now to Peter Ndoro, who is at Kwekwe, which is 200 kilometers southwest of Harare, and he is at the Sherwood Primary School there, which is about 10 kilometers outside the town of Kwekwe. Peter, good morning and over to you.
Thanks very much, Sakina. Yeah, this is perhaps one of the most watched polling stations because the first citizen, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, whose private residence, his farm, is close by. So this is where he's come to vote. We're expecting him to be here around about 10 this morning to cast his vote. I wonder which party he's going to be voting for and which presidential candidate that he's backing. But historic in the sense that, again, former President Robert Mugabe is not on that ballot, and there are 23 other names that the voters have a choice to vote for. But what they are voting for is not just the individual, not just the party. Many of the people that we've been interacting with are praying that this is going to be a vote for change. Some political, and it's been a consistent theme of most of the political parties, that a new order, a new way, a new Zimbabwe is what's required. And the only difference really is with the parties is how they see themselves delivering that new Zimbabwe. Jobs, employment, businesses being resuscitated, the economy growing. Those are the main issues that the citizens of this country are worried about. And particularly when you start going out of the major urban centers into the rural and peri-urban areas such as the one we are now, you have a lot of young people. The country is very young generally, and with what's been believed to be unemployment rate of somewhere around 90%. Young people are the most affected. So it's quite likely we're going to see a lot of young people voting as well. The statistics suggest that 60% of the voters on the voters roll are under the age of 40. So it's a young country, and young people have a stake in what happens in this particular election. And so you're seeing some of the people casting their ballots as we speak, and they go through a very simple process. They just get their names checked on the voters roll, and then they move on to get their 3 ballot papers, and then they go to the booths near the blackboard in this classroom that we're in, and then they cast their vote. And there just seems to be this air and desire for something to happen. And maybe that's going to be the challenge. Whoever wins this election, whether they haven't overpromised and that there's a huge expectation for change to happen quite quickly. And that's going to be the really big task for any of the winners, any person who wins this particular election. Well, that's it from us for the time being. We'll see you again later on. And don't forget, President Emmerson Mnangagwa will be voting right here a little bit later on this morning. Sakina?
Well, and of course, yesterday at a media briefing, former President Robert Mugabe broke his silence on the Zimbabwe elections, and he confirmed that he will not vote for ZANU PF in today's election. And this as the country goes to the polls to elect a new president and government. Mugabe also said that he can't vote for people who tormented him. Mugabe also encouraged people to accept the outcome of the vote and hopes that what happened in November is now history. And this will be the country's first election since Mugabe was forced to resign last year, and this after 37 years in power. And now elections expert Litlhare Rabele is with us. Welcome and thanks for speaking to us this morning.
Thanks, Sakina.
So Robert Mugabe was going to have his say one way or another, because this is the first time in 37 years, more than a generation, that Robert Mugabe's name will not be on a ballot at an election in Zimbabwe. First and foremost, that sentiment and him having that press conference yesterday.
Yes, that's very interesting time, Sakina, and to see former President Mugabe endorsing Chamisa in that manner in the last hours towards the elections, that was in a way to show that he was not happy with the manner in which ZANU PF removed him from office and kind of endorsing support for Chamisa in the upcoming elections. I would have thought, as a former head of state, he could have gone out and called for Zimbabweans to respect the electoral laws, to remain calm, but to even go to the extent of indicating which party you'll be voting for, I think it was really, really for him to show that he's really still angry with the ZANU PF. And I think this could have implications for the outcome of the results, given that ZANU PF strongholds in the Mashonaland area, Mashonaland East, West, and Central and Masvingo areas, those are traditionally ZANU PF strongholds. So we think that this might have an impact in that Chamisa could get some of those votes, which would really make it very tight for ZANU PF.
Well, it then becomes a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, Chamisa could benefit from the Mugabe endorsement, but on the other hand, it places him at odds with his own colleagues within the MDC.
Yeah, that's correct. But you look at the main actors there, you really see that, look, Chamisa, having been this close to President Mugabe, although it was not in the public, in Mashonaland West and the whole area of Mashonaland, President Mugabe has really been popular. And if the votes are taken away, or there's frustrated voters who feel that they cannot vote for ZANU PF, they cannot vote for Chamisa, that would still impact on the majority that ZANU PF traditionally would have. And also there could be impact from independent candidates, but it still remains between Chamisa and Emmerson Mnangagwa.
What sort of impact are those independent candidates likely to have? Because 23 of them on the ballot paper, but this is a young country like the rest of Africa. So, realistically, what sort of impact are we likely to see from them?
Well, the main impact by independent candidate will be at the constituency level elections, because that's where you find mostly independent candidate. With the presidential, I don't think there's much of an impact. We see the main two, ZANU PF and MDC alliance, the Joyce Mujuru and Tokosani Kupe, the only two women that seem to be prominent. Unfortunately, I don't think they are going to make it, given the challenges that women always face in politics. So, yeah.
That's a serious indictment there. But we also saw from our colleagues in Zimbabwe, speaking to voters who were at the polling stations this morning, that people are yearning for change. Unsurprisingly so. They want jobs. They want an economy that would be able to sustain them, to rebuild Zimbabwe, as it were. Are those realistic expectations at this stage? Because I think I heard something earlier that the United States, they've actually signed a bill to extend sanctions against Zimbabwe.
Look, Sakina, it's one thing to attend political rallies en masse. It's another thing to really come out and vote. And politicians normally make huge promises around this time, and sometimes it becomes difficult to fulfill once they get into office. But yes, Zimbabweans are yearning for change. They are yearning for a leadership, a new government that would ensure job creation, empowerment of women, economic emancipation. And when you look at the campaign rallies and the sort of people who are attending, Chamisa's rallies were really dominated by young people, youthful participation of Zimbabweans, which shows that they are interested this time around, and we can only hope that their participation in rallies can translate into votes, and that their expectations will be met somehow. I think it's going to take a bit of time for whoever that comes in to really get Zimbabwe into a more prosperous situation, given the challenges they've been having. So there could be some disappointments where people think government is slow to bring change.
which is usually par for the course when it comes to elections and promises that are made during this time. Well, thank you so much to our guest this morning. And we will, of course, be bringing you more on the Zimbabwe elections as we move along. And we will be crossing to our reporters on the grounds as well. Litlhare Rabele is, of course, the guest, our expert on Zimbabwe, speaking to us about the Zimbabwe landmark elections that are currently underway.